Support comes from Mosby Building Arts, upgrading windows to help curb appeal and keep homes efficient. More at callmosby.com.
From the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Monday, May 12th. I'm Jonathan Ahl. There are 5 days left in the 2025 Missouri Legislative session. The Republican-led chambers still have several priorities they want to accomplish before they leave Jefferson City. One of those is rolling back a voter-approved policy that allows employees to earn sick leave.
I think this is something that House and Senate Republicans really want to get done.
St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Littman speaks with State House and Politics reporter Sarah Kellogg on what to expect in the last week of session. That's coming up on The Gateway. The Missouri Legislature met its constitutional deadline Friday and passed a roughly $53 billion budget. Both the Senate and House spent hours passing a series of compromise bills that make up the operating budget and 2 additional bills that include spending for capital improvements and the American Rescue Plan Act. However, one budget bill did not make it out. House Bill 19 contained hundreds of millions of dollars for capital improvements across the state. House Budget Chair Dirk Deaton says he did not bring the bill up for consideration because he felt the budget had grown too large.
Considering, what we spent in the operating, just felt like, we couldn't move forward at this time.
Included in this year's budget is money to fully fund the state's K-12 public school formula, as well as $50 million to go towards scholarships to private schools. The Americas Center Convention Complex will be home to an international robotics competition in the coming years. St. Louis Public Radio's Chad Davis reports.
The VEX Robotics World Championship will be held in 2026 and 27. It's a week-long competition hosted by the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation that brings students from around the world to compete in STEM challenges. Local leaders say the event could generate more than $32 million and more than 50,000 hotel room nights. Dan Mance is CEO of the foundation. He says St. Louisans are eager for the event.
They absolutely wanted this event in their city, and we felt that they were going to be great partners and that they were going to come and support the event, support the guests from all over the world.
The last few VEX championships were held in Dallas. Explore St. Louis leaders hope the success of this event will lead to future championships. I'm Chad Davis, St. Louis Public Radio.
The Florissant Police Department has confirmed that a detainee died in its custody early yesterday morning. Florissant Police Chief Tim Fagan says the St. Louis County Police Department has been notified of the detainee's death and will lead the investigation into the cause. Florissant Police say the detainee was a 35-year-old man but released no further details. 2024 was the deadliest year for pedestrians on St. Louis area roads. As St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Littman reports, one St. Louis neighborhood is enlisting its school-aged children to help change the city's driving culture.
Project Stop, standing together offering pedestrian protection, had grade schoolers ask drivers to sign pledges to stop at all stop signs. It was the brainchild of Michael Mayer, the first vice president of the Shaw Neighborhood Improvement Association. St. Margaret of Scotland in Shaw was the first to participate. Students collected nearly 1,300 signatures. Mayer says it's hard to tell if the pledges have made a difference in driver behavior, but he says it sparked conversations.
The word was getting out and people were interacting and talking about it, which is really the goal, getting people to talk about why safe driving is important.
Mayer hopes to expand the program to other schools next year. I'm Rachel Littman, St. Louis Public Radio.
Graduation season at St. Louis Public Schools kicked off with a different cohort this year, parents. As St. Louis Public Radio's Hiba Ahmed reports, the graduates are part of the inaugural class of SLPS's Parent University.
Cassandra Connor, Kiara Johnson, Lisa Lee.
These are the names of Parent University graduates. Over 100 parents and caregivers spent the year attending monthly workshops to get a better understanding of how to best support their students. They learned about topics like social-emotional learning, working with teachers, and building reading skills. Parent Kiara Mason says she's grateful for the program because keeping up with her students' learning can be overwhelming.
Being a parent and teaching your kid and having somebody else in the background that's willing to help you, that is an amazing feeling. I mean, they said it takes a village to raise a child, to teach them as well, because that's a part of the village, and I'm so thankful and happy.
District officials say parent engagement leads to better outcomes, such as higher test scores and better student behavior. The The district plans to continue the program in the next school year with hopes of enrolling nearly 300 parents. I'm Heba Ahmed, St. Louis Public Radio.
Today marks the beginning of the end of the 2025 Missouri Legislative session. With 5 days remaining, Republicans still have priorities that remain unfinished. That includes rolling back voter-approved abortion rights, minimum wage changes, and sick leave. St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Littman spoke with State House and Politics reporter Sarah Kellogg about the final week of session.
So we're into the last week of the legislative session, and there's already been some drama around the state budget. The House, on purpose, did not pass roughly $500 million in capital improvements across the state. Sarah, what happened there?
So it was kind of a last minute change that I think only House Republicans saw coming. And it was a situation where House Budget Chair Dirk Deaton, he says he basically saw what the totals were going to be with the budget and he felt that that was too much. And so ultimately he decided to not bring up, even for a vote at all, House Bill 19, which had, as you said, roughly $500 million in capital improvements. And, he says he didn't tell the Senate. House Democrats weren't aware of this. So it was a pretty big move to do right before pretty much the budget deadline.
And how do you think that's going to shape the last week of session?
I think this is kind of a proverbial grenade that's been kind of launched within the legislature now with only 5 days left. Honestly, the House and Senate, I feel like have been getting along this year more than they have in years past with kind of cooperation between the two. And I think this definitely will put a strain between relationships in the chambers.
So Senate Democrats have managed to twice stop legislation to eliminate the voter-approved sick leave and some of the minimum wage provisions. Are you expecting a breakthrough on that at all?
I do expect there to be kind of a deal in the end. Twice, Senate Democrats and Republicans have negotiated on this bill, only to not reach a deal quite yet. But I think this is something that House and Senate Republicans really want to get done. With only Senate Democrats being 10 in their numbers, there's only so much you can do. So I am actually anticipating a deal. I don't know what that's going to look like. That could be some people getting earned sick leave. That could be, keeping the CPI increase for minimum wage. So there's lots of ways this could take shape. But I am expecting to see an agreement in the Senate and the House to probably quickly pass it so they can get it done.
There is one piece of legislation that has not made it to the Senate floor, and that is changes to the abortion rights now enshrined in the Missouri Constitution. What is the status of that bill?
So that resolution has made it through Senate committee, and that's where it is sat. And I am anticipating floor action, but I don't know how that's going to be. It hasn't been brought to the floor yet. Normally, you can kind of get a feel for how the parties think on that, but I haven't seen that. Obviously, the House has passed it. If the Senate makes any changes, it would have to go back to the House to see if they approve those changes. So it's kind of anybody's guess what that's going to look like this week.
Two big lifts left in the Senate. What about over in the House?
So there's one bill that comes to my mind that the Senate passed way back in February that the House has kind of sat on, and it deals with sunsets, which is basically expiration dates for legislation. It repeals a lot of those, and there's kind of two provisions within this bill that I feel are particularly interesting. One is basically would lift the expiration date on the federal reimbursement allowance, which is how Missouri pays for roughly 1/3 of its Medicaid. So a very big deal, and it is kind of continuously a fight to get that that sunset extended every time it comes up. So that fight would just simply go away if that sunset were to be repealed. And then the other sunset that I think is a very significant change is it would make permanent the bans for transgender minors to access gender-affirming healthcare, as well as permanently barring transgender athletes from participating on sports teams that align with their gender identity. So for those to go into state law at all, Senate Democrats and Republicans basically compromised on this sunset date, which is set to expire in August 28th of 2027. But if this bill were to go into effect, then those laws would become permanent.
Sarah Kellogg, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Littman and Sarah Kellogg talking through the last week of the Missouri legislative session. You can read more at stlpr.org. Our Fred Ehrlich edited that report. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. We are a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis. I'm Jonathan Ahl, and from the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this has been The Gateway.